President Cyril Ramaphosa has expressed his sadness at the passing of author, poet and activist Don Mattera. The 87-year-old Mattera was a widely acclaimed and respected political and cultural activist and journalist who received numerous acknowledgements nationally, continentally and internationally. He was also an esteemed member of the Order of the Baobab in Gold, which he was awarded in 2006. The award recognizes his excellent contribution to literature, achievement in the fields of journalism, and striving for democracy and justice in South Africa. President Ramaphosa says that the nation is deeply saddened by the loss of Don Mattera's eloquent, rousing, and revolutionary voice for justice. Messages of condolence have been pouring in after the passing of the anti-apartheid activist. The 87-year-old Mattera, a poet, is known for his role in liberating the country. He was an outspoken critic of apartheid and spent 8 years under house arrest.
We want to also take this opportunity to convey our condolences to the Mattera family. We've just received information that Don Mattera has passed. I had an opportunity to work with him when I was Minister of Arts and Culture, and we would really want to say to the family our sincere condolences.
Yes, Don Mattera was a band writer. Don Mattera was one of the struggle icons of our liberation, and he used his poems, he used his poetry to teach the young people, to conscientize them about the struggle.
Another giant has fallen, a liberation giant, a pillar of strength. Don Mattera is no more. Don Mattera conscientized us as youngsters through his poems. He taught us self-reliance.
The passing of legendary poet and anti-apartheid activist Don Mattera has left South Africa more poorer. He was one of the best poets South Africa has ever produced. He was a voice of reason, a voice of compassion, and an activist who cared deeply about his society.
Professor Jonathan Jansen has described the departed Don Mattera as an easygoing and humble person who always lived within his communities. In March, Professor Jansen delivered the inaugural Don Mattera lecture. Professor Jansen shared his memories of Mattera with the SABC earlier this evening.
He is a person who, had roots in the ANC, but also in other political movements, but never lost his values, his sense of values that, and didn't, bask in glory and material things and blue light brigades and, all of the privileges that politically powerful people accrue unto themselves. He understood that his duty as an activist was not to enrich himself, was not to advance his own interests, but to serve. So when somebody asked him once, how would you like to be remembered? He said, I want to be remembered as somebody who loved my country and served my people. Man, what a powerful countercultural message almost, given the politics of the day. If you said to somebody like Don, what are you going to do on Nelson Mandela's day? He'd probably say what I did yesterday and what I will do tomorrow. In other words, Mandela Day was every day. And that is indeed the story of his life, even into his 80s, He served fervently wherever he had influence with what he was blessed. He could serve and influence others for the good. And what an amazing story from a guy who was a gangster at one stage in his life, becomes somebody who blesses all of us, with a life turned around. His story is a South African story. It's a story of recovery. It's a story of redemption. And it's a story that inspires us with all the stuff going on around us at the moment. He inspires me, certainly, to want to keep on keeping on. And Don's life, I mean, if you look at his poems, for example, on Zimbabwe, and Zimbabweans, if you look at the way in which his politics was borderless, in which his love didn't come on condition that you were, for example, a citizen, etc. That is a different kind of politics. That's a truly progressive politics. That's a just politics. And so I raised the issue of xenophobia in the context of that lecture because his life was contradicted that narrow thinking, that respected colonial borders and treated people as insiders or outsiders and so on. His entire life. Remember, he also shifts in his life, from Christian to Muslim, from ANC to, there's BC, there's a broader politics. And so his whole life is a series of transformations that becomes more inclusive, more progressive, and more determined to make sure that everybody has a place in the sun. I wish every one of our politicians had just a little bit of that spirit of Don Mattera. Very few South Africans could do what he did, which was because of his background, Italian father, as I said, African mother, and so on. He could move seamlessly, between black and white and all the shades in between. He could move seamlessly between one political ideology and another.
Don Mattera was an institution that was never appreciated by his country and government.
I would like my brother to be remembered as a humanitarian, a soldier who was compassionate towards the people. Growing up with him, I was told by him there's no such a thing as race or color. That is a sick thing. But in the background, seeing my brother coming out, a hero has fallen. This is a man who made time for each and every one on God's planet. He was so compassionate. It was unbelievable. Being raised by him was magic because he would always sit with you, talk to you, and he would always protect. I want to thank God for my brother this evening. During apartheid, when the illegitimate apartheid government started chasing his children and his kids' sisters, he protected us even through that. And I think that is the biggest thing that any brother can do for his sister and his family. And I want to thank God for every South African, everybody who stopped me in the street and said, your brother made a lot of changes in my life. Because it's not only in certain areas, this is an international thing. He is a hero. I can only say tonight that I've never seen anyone like him. Maybe that person will still be born or what, but he was the politician. He was the father of the nation, and he was the humanitarian of his people.
The first thing to be said about Don Mattera is
Compassion.
Besides the compassion, Don Mattera was an institution, was one of a kind, and I can tell you one thing, Don Mattera was not sufficiently appreciated in this country. Don and I often spoke about this, and I can tell you now that I've discussed it with Kgalema Motlanthe, a number of ANC people. Had Don been a supporter and member of the ANC, he would have received more recognition than he got. So it was a sore point with Mattera, I can tell you now. It's very unfortunate because, the thing that strikes me about Don, let me tell you, I've never walked with another man or person in town anywhere you go, and virtually everybody stops him. Almost every, I used to get tired walking with Don in the CBD, because you wherever you're going to, you take hours to get there because everybody wants. Now, really, a massive contribution this man has made to the struggle in this country, and certainly, I would argue at length, he was not sufficiently appreciated by the powers that be, unfortunately.
Don believed in black people. He he was able to dispel the myth that black people are unable to do anything. In him we saw the fulfillment of who we are. In his poems, he talked directly to ordinary people. He was able to reach the kind of people which the majority of us can't reach. And like she said, he wouldn't compromise. He wouldn't try to be very nice to anybody. He actually worked within the community, and we refer to him as Brazinga, a man of the people, a man who has experienced everything. We looked at Bradon and said, Bradon was us, we were Bradon. And I think that was his strength. He could talk to all kinds of people. He could get into any kind of struggle and never compromised his principles. If he's unhappy about something, he would say so. He laughed and say, you know, Livon, they gave me Inkamanga in silver, and they give each other gold. Because he did believe that he was deserving of recognition, because the whole world has recognized Bradon. It's only in our country where people struggle to recognize such a great icon. I would say he wasn't only an icon in Eldos, he was actually one of the greatest icons in the whole country. He represented that which we didn't get in 1994. If we say 1994 did not deliver freedom to black people, Bradon would be able to explain it much better. You know his poem, Sea and Sand, and he would say, God must bless all children, but more the black children who have lost everything, who have lost their land, who have lost literally everything, and they have to build from the ground.
As the country mourns the passing of the legendary poet, author and journalist Don Mattera, the SABC continues to reflect some of the significant moments of his life. Earlier this year, the 6th Ubuntu Awards bestowed Mattera with the Ubuntu Arts and Culture Diplomacy Veterans Award. His son Teddy accepted the award on his father's behalf, and this is what he had to say.
Honorary recipients tonight, we thank you for this wonderful gift that you're giving to Don Mattera. They say when you honor a man when he's alive, you give him a gift of love. On behalf of Dr. Donato Francesco Mattera, we, as his children and his family, would like to thank you for the befitting honor being bestowed on him. AKA son of the soil, Ma Africa. Ubuntu is what Don Mattera is made of. Don Mattera epitomizes compassion. It's what he lives for. Don Mattera loves children. He dies for children. He is the ambassador of the children's organization in South Africa. Don Mattera says, love your children, don't hurt them, and equally love their mothers, because without them, they would not be. In ending, Don Mattera says the following: life is a race. Before you run, turn, take somebody's hand and run with him. Don't leave your brothers or your sisters behind. I thank you.